Welcome back to the Deep Book Digest. You know how this works. You send us the books and we dig out the good stuff.
The really fascinating parts.
And this time we're taking a deep dive into Iain McGilchrist's The Master and His Emissary.
Oh, yeah.
So we're looking at the excerpts that you sent specifically on the divided brain.
The divided brain. Yeah, this is a big one.
It is a big one.
Yeah.
So maybe for listeners who haven't had a chance to really dig into this book, which is quite dense, what's the core concept we're dealing with here?
Well, McGilchrist, he really dives deep into these differences that we have between the two hemispheres of our brain.
Right.
And he really argues that understanding these differences can kind of unlock a whole new way of understanding just the human experience in general.
Okay, so let's break this down. Like if I'm walking down the street,
Right.
how are my two hemispheres experiencing that walk differently?
Okay, so think about it this way. Your left hemisphere is super focused on the details. It's going to be noticing those cracks in the sidewalk. It's going to be looking at the individual leaves on the trees. It's going to be registering the street signs. You know, it's all about categorizing and analyzing,
Yeah.
breaking things down into manageable pieces.
So my left brain is like my inner checklist maker,
Yeah.
making sure I don't trip over anything, get lost.
Right, exactly. It's that part of you that helps you kind of navigate the world in a very practical, efficient way.
I got it.
But then you have your right hemisphere.
Oh.
And the right hemisphere is taking in the whole scene.
Okay.
So it's thinking about the sunlight filtering through the leaves. It's about the birds chirping, the feeling of the breeze on your skin. It's about experiencing the world as this kind of like unified whole, this living, breathing tapestry of sensations and emotions.
So the right brain is kind of like the vibe.
The vibe, the atmosphere, the
Yeah.
big picture.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this isn't just like philosophical musing. You know, McGilchrist backs up his claims with a lot of scientific evidence. So, for example, he points to split brain studies where the connection between the hemispheres is severed.
Yeah. I've always found those a little bit creepy.
Yeah, fascinating.
But what can those studies tell us about how these hemispheres actually work?
Well, they give us a lot of really fascinating insights. So, in one famous experiment, they showed a split brain patient different images to each hemisphere.
Okay.
And so the left hemisphere was shown a picture of a chicken foot, and it very logically picked a picture of a chicken from a set of images.
Makes sense.
But the right hemisphere was shown a snowy scene, and it chose a shovel.
A shovel. Why a shovel?
Well, because the right hemisphere understood the context.
Oh.
Snow, you need a shovel. The left hemisphere got stuck on that very specific image of the chicken foot,
Right.
and it missed the bigger picture.
Interesting.
So that really highlights the right hemisphere's ability to grasp these implicit meanings and connections.
So the left hemisphere is like the detective focused on the clues.
Yeah.
And the right hemisphere is like the novelist.
The novel.
Putting it all together in a story.
Weaving it all together into a story. That's a great analogy.
Okay.
And it's this right hemisphere storytelling ability that really helps us make sense of the world on a deeper level. You know, it allows us to experience emotions, understand metaphors, appreciate art, connect with others on an empathetic level.
It seems like, though, McGilchrist is a little bit concerned that we're neglecting this right hemisphere wisdom in kind of like our modern world.
Yeah, he is.
So how?
He argues that Western culture, especially in recent times, has become increasingly dominated by this left hemisphere thinking. You know, we see this in our obsession with technology and data and systems where everything has to be measured, categorized, controlled.
So we're so focused on the trees, we've forgotten about the whole forest.
Exactly. And McGilchrist warns us that this over-reliance on left hemisphere thinking can have some pretty serious consequences.
Oh.
He believes it leads to a sense of fragmentation and alienation and a real loss of meaning in our lives.
So what's the antidote?
Well, that's a journey we'll have to explore a little bit later. But for now, just being aware of this dynamic, recognizing how these two hemispheres shape our experience, that's a crucial first step.
I'm already starting to notice it everywhere. From how I plan my day to how I'm interacting with friends. This is really powerful stuff. Okay, so let's dive even deeper into this idea of right hemisphere dominance and see how it plays out in specific areas of our lives.
Okay, let's do it. Well, let's start with something that we all experience every single day. Our bodies.
Okay.
You know how sometimes you just feel really in tune with your physical self? Like maybe you're out dancing or you're playing sports
Right.
and you're just completely immersed in that feeling of movement.
Yeah, or like enjoying a really delicious meal.
Exactly. Those moments of just embodied joy. That's the right hemisphere shining through. It's responsible for that feeling of being a living, breathing organism, you know, connected to the world.
I like that.
But when the left hemisphere takes over,
Yeah.
we can start to become really disconnected from our bodies.
So like instead of experiencing our bodies as like a source of pleasure and connection,
Yeah.
it becomes another thing to like manage and control. Like, okay, buddy, you need 8 hours of sleep.
Right.
You need a balanced diet.
Right.
You need your gym routine. Now perform.
Yeah. We reduce our bodies to just a set of data points
Right.
instead of experiencing them as this source of wisdom and intuition.
It's like a machine.
Yeah. And this left hemisphere dominance also impacts how we interact with other people.
Oh, interesting. Because connecting with someone is so much more than just like processing their words.
Right.
Right.
Think about a time you had a really deep conversation with someone.
Okay.
You know, you were picking up on their subtle facial expressions, their tone of voice, even just the energy they were bringing to the room.
You're reading between the lines.
Exactly. You're sensing what's not being said. That's the right hemisphere's empathy in action. You know, it allows us to connect with other people on this emotional level, to sense their feelings,
Yeah.
to really understand their perspective. But when we're stuck in that left hemisphere mode,
Yeah.
we tend to approach relationships in a much more kind of transactional way.
So instead of seeing the person,
Yeah,
you're seeing what you can get from them.
exactly. It's what can I get from this person?
Yeah.
How do they fit into my plans, my goals? And it can create this sense of distance and isolation, even in our closest relationships.
It's so true. And this shift toward left hemisphere thinking also affects, I think, how we experience art.
Oh, absolutely.
You mentioned earlier that art is a right hemisphere phenomenon.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Well, McGilchrist argues that great art doesn't just present us with a copy of the world.
Yeah.
It invites us to see the world differently,
Oh.
to experience it through a new lens.
So you're feeling the emotion. You're grasping the deeper meaning.
Exactly. It's not just about analyzing the technique.
Got it.
Like, let's take a painting, for example.
Oh.
The left hemisphere might focus on the brushstrokes,
Okay.
composition, the technical aspects, but the right hemisphere is experiencing the colors, the shapes, the emotions that that painting is evoking.
So is the difference between like admiring a beautifully crafted clock
Yes,
and being swept away by a piece of music?
that's a wonderful way to put it. And McGilchrist worries that when that left hemisphere dominates, we lose this ability to be moved by art.
Interesting.
You know, we become too focused on analyzing and dissecting, and we miss that deeper magic.
It's like going to a concert and spending the whole time like critiquing the musician's technique
Yeah.
instead of letting the music wash over you.
Exactly. And this applies to music and literature as well. The right hemisphere is attuned to the rhythm, the melody, the nuances of language that convey meaning beyond the literal. It's the part of us that gets lost in a good story, that
Right.
feels the power of a poem. But if we're constantly analyzing and dissecting, we miss the emotional heart of the work.
Yeah, you become like a detached observer instead of an active participant.
Exactly. And this, McGilchrist argues, is a real loss because art has this power to connect us to something larger than ourselves, to awaken this sense of wonder and awe.
So how do we resist this left hemisphere takeover?
Yeah.
Because it feels like our whole culture is pushing us in that direction.
Yeah.
Speed, efficiency, logic, data.
It's definitely a challenge.
Mhm.
But McGilchrist believes that we can reclaim a more balanced way of being.
Okay.
And he suggests looking to history for inspiration.
Okay.
You know, he talks about how certain periods in history, like ancient Greece,
Uh-huh.
they seem to have a better balance between the hemispheres.
Interesting.
The ancient Greeks made these groundbreaking contributions to both the sciences and the arts. They valued logic and reason,
Yeah.
but they also embraced mythology and poetry and drama. They understood that both hemispheres have these essential roles to play
They make a good society.
in a flourishing society.
Oh, it's not about rejecting the left hemisphere.
No.
It's about integrating it.
It's about integrating its strengths with the wisdom of the right hemisphere.
So it's like a dance.
It is like a dance.
Both partners are essential.
Yes.
But if one partner takes over and dominates the dance floor, it's not really a dance anymore.
The harmony is lost.
You need that interplay, that
Yeah.
creative tension
Yes.
between the two
Yes.
to create something truly beautiful and meaningful. So how do we start to restore that balance in our own lives?
That's a great question. So we've talked a lot about the problem, you know, this imbalance between the hemispheres.
Right.
But what can our listeners actually do?
Yeah. What are some practical things
What are some practical steps?
people can take to start shifting towards like a more balanced way of being?
Yeah. I mean, McGilchrist, he doesn't really offer like a prescriptive list of do this, don't do that.
Right.
It's more about cultivating a certain mindset.
Okay.
a way of approaching life that really allows the right hemisphere's wisdom to shine through.
So it's less about like adding things to your to-do list.
Yeah.
And more about like shifting your perspective.
Exactly. And it starts with simple things,
Yeah.
Like, how often do you actually stop and pay attention to your senses? The feeling of the sun on your skin, the taste of your morning coffee, the sound of the wind in the trees.
I feel like I'm guilty of just rushing through life on autopilot most of the time.
We all are.
Yeah.
But those small moments of sensory awareness, that's the right hemisphere coming online. And it can have a profound impact on how you feel throughout the day.
Interesting. So being present in your body,
Yeah.
not just your head.
In your body, not just in your head.
What else can we do to cultivate that right hemisphere perspective?
Well, McGilchrist talks a lot about the importance of slowing down. Our culture is so obsessed with speed and efficiency
Right.
that we rarely give ourselves time to just be.
You're always afraid to miss out on something.
Exactly.
So you're constantly scrolling, checking, consuming.
Yeah, and all that stimulation. It keeps that left hemisphere in overdrive.
It does.
But when we slow down, when we create space for silence and stillness, that's when the right hemisphere can step forward.
So like putting down your phone,
Yeah.
taking a walk in nature.
Absolutely.
Maybe trying some meditation.
Those are all great ways to quiet the mental chatter and just tune into a different way of being.
I like that.
McGilchrist also emphasizes the importance of connecting with things that spark a sense of awe and wonder.
Okay, so like gazing at the stars,
Yeah.
listening to music that moves you,
Yeah.
getting lost in a good book.
Yes. Those experiences, they remind us that there's more to life than just this material world. The measurable, the quantifiable. They tap into something deeper, something more mysterious, more profound.
And I feel like those experiences don't necessarily require like grand gestures.
No.
Sometimes it's just noticing the beauty in the everyday.
Absolutely. The way the light falls on a flower, the sound of laughter in the street.
Yeah.
The key is to cultivate that sense of openness,
Yeah.
curiosity, a willingness to let go of the need to control and analyze everything.
It's almost like becoming more childlike in your approach to the world.
There is a certain playfulness and freedom that comes with right hemisphere thinking, and that playfulness, it's not frivolous. It's essential for creativity and innovation and connection.
Well, this has been such a fascinating deep dive into the divided brain.
Totally.
We've covered so much from like the scientific evidence to like the practical implications.
Absolutely.
As we kind of wrap up here, what is one key takeaway you hope listeners will remember from this conversation?
I think just that we all have within us these two distinct ways of being in the world.
Right.
And while the left hemisphere is incredibly valuable,
Yes.
it's essential to cultivate the wisdom of the right hemisphere if we want to live fully, meaningfully, joyfully.
So finding that balance,
It's in that balance.
that harmony between the two hemispheres.
And recognizing that it's an ongoing dance,
Yeah.
a journey of awareness and discovery.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for guiding us through this exploration of The Master and His Emissary. It's a book that really makes you think differently about who we are and how we experience the world.
It's been a pleasure diving in with you.
And to our listeners, we hope this deep dive has sparked some new insights for you too. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep that beautiful dance between your two hemispheres going strong.